Welcome back to the Digging Deep podcast, the podcast where we offer bereavement bites for time-pressed professionals and where we explore trends, challenges, and stories that are shaping the future of the death care profession in Canada. I'm your host, Heather Kiteley, President and CEO of GFD and proud second-generation funeral director. Today we're recording live from the Alberta Funeral Service Association AGM and conference in the beautiful Edmonton, Alberta. This is an incredible gathering of professionals committed to elevating the standards of care that they provide to families every day, and we're super excited to be here. In this episode, we are going to be exploring the unique traditions, practices, and cultural influences that shape how families here in Alberta celebrate and commemorate life. Our guest brings first-hand insight into how Alberta's history, diversity, and values are reflected in its funeral services and what those traditions mean for the future of care. Now, before we jump in, if you're enjoying our podcast, please make sure to follow, leave us a comment, and feel free to share this episode with someone in your life who might find it valuable. Your support helps us to continue to bring these important conversations to the forefront. Joining me today is Chris Clements, who's a funeral director, embalmer, director of operations, and owner of many funeral homes across Alberta. Chris was born and raised in Grande Prairie, Alberta. After high school, moved away to Calgary for 5 years, where he went to college, worked, and met Colleen, wife of 25 years. After getting married, he moved back to Grande Prairie, attended Peace River Bible Institute, and graduated with a bachelor's degree in pastoral ministry. He went on to pastor for 12 years at Christian Fellowship Assembly in Grande Prairie. During his time at the church, he enjoyed preaching, counseling individuals and couples, and I think that work still continues, as we had talked about earlier. He also worked with youth and young adults. He and Colleen have one son and 2 daughters, and now Chris has entered a new kind of ministry, and he cares for families who are going through a loss in their lives. The transition from being a pastor to working in the death care sector was fairly natural because, as we said earlier, caring for people is caring for people. So welcome so much, Chris.
Thanks for having me.
We are so excited to have you here. So we are going to be talking about cultural practices, etc. But let's start with just talking a little bit about you and what that transition from what your experience of funeral service was being a pastor to what your experience in funeral service is today. Let's start there.
Yeah, that's a good place to start, because what you think you know nothing until you get into it, right? So coming from a pastor's point of view, you're part of the service and you're helping the families, but you don't see all the things behind the scenes.
What actually, that makes me think of something. What was your opinion of funeral directors before you became one?
I thought they were all weird. I was like, these guys are weird. I could never do that job.
That is
Turns out I'm weird. So there we go.
So it's a natural fit.
I guess so.
There you go. Those guys are weird. Well,
Yeah.
it's true. A little bit.
Yeah.
It's all right.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I digressed there. Go ahead.
Yeah, so continuing on, coming from the pastor side of things, you don't see all the care of the deceased. Right. You don't see the background stuff and all the little pieces that go along with it. So it was really eye-opening to get into this profession and to come in and go, okay, how can I help people?
Yeah.
Because helping people, like you said, is just helping people.
Yeah, it's a different kind of care.
But it's so much more rewarding in this profession because people really appreciate when you're there for them.
Talk about that, right? Because I think that, I think that given your background and experience, you saying that has a lot of weight, right? So talk to me a little bit about what that means for you.
Yeah, so when I meet with a family and you're trying to walk them through their journey, I always have goals that I have in mind for them. So when I meet with them, sit with them, talk with them, I want them to tell me those remember when moments. That's number one. So the remember when about your mom, and then they tell that story and they smile, or they're like, oh, there's this trait about them. Because then all of a sudden they're opening up and you're helping them through their grief journey. And then if you can get them laughing, right?
I feel like that wouldn't be hard for you.
No, it's not.
Because you have all of us laughing within 2 seconds of coming in.
But it's so important because I think laughing is one of the best ways to help your body grieve and let out the grief, right? Crying is wonderful and great, but as you're laughing and telling a story about your loved one that died, all of a sudden it's good. It's releasing.
It's like a release of emotion,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And maybe even something that is a little bit more acceptable in terms of a release of emotion.
Yeah. So when I came into this profession, I remember saying to one of my business partners, who's a good friend of mine, I said, I don't know if I can do this job because I'm not that, proper.
You're not that super sober.
Yeah, I'm
what,
not.
What people think of funeral directors.
I'm a relaxed, chill guy that wants to have fun.
Yeah.
And he said to me, he said, well, maybe that's not what people want anymore. And I thought, I guess we're going to find out. And it's been a fun journey. I mean, it's been 8 years now, right, that I've been in this. So, and it's just been enjoyable. Like,
how did that actually happen, though? So tell me, fill in that gap for me of your working. You're obviously successful as a pastor in your community, and obviously fulfilling. You still do some of that work today. So why the change? Why did you think?
That's a long story. I don't know if we have time, but my buddy, who's now my business partner, we've been friends our whole life. We grew up together. He's a successful business guy. He's an accountant by trade, but what he does is he negotiates business deals between companies, and he's a tax specialist. So
okay, good friend to have.
Yeah, he's super smart. Anyways, I can't say too much because if he listens to it, then it might go to his head. Anyways,
and we can't have that, can we?
Right. So he phones me up and he says, "Hey, are you interested in changing your jobs?" And I said, "Absolutely not."
Just out of the blue?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I said, "Absolutely not. I love what I do. I enjoy it, and life is great."
Right.
And he's like, "Yeah, but you could go work at a funeral home." And I started laughing. I said, "No, not a chance." So he phones me up a couple months later. He's like, "Hey, let's go golfing." So while we're golfing, he says, "Hey, the funeral home's for sale in town. We should buy it and you should run it." And I started laughing. I said, "No way, I don't want to do that."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Come on, why don't you just think about it?" And I said, "You know what, I'll think and I'll pray about it."
Okay.
And that was the mistake I made, or the right decision I made. I say back then because back then when I started talking to friends and family. So when I talked to people in Grand Prairie where I was living and pastoring, a lot of them were like, they were biased because they wanted me to stay where I was at. So I phoned my brothers who live down in California. They're doctors down there. And I said, "Hey guys, here's what I'm thinking about doing. Can you pray about this and think about it and let me know what your thoughts are?" Mm-hmm. And so as they did that, they came back from a non-biased position because they don't care about the job I'm doing. They just care about me. And it was kind of interesting because my one brother came back and he said to me, "The owner of that company has been working in the city for 30 years, running the funeral home, cares for the people, has good standing." He said, "Maybe God wants someone in that position who will continue that with integrity and that sort of thing." And I remember just crying and going, "Oh my goodness. Okay, this is not about me then. It's about the community."
Yeah.
And I liked that. And then my other brother said, "I think everything that you've done in your life has prepared you to take on this next challenge."
Yeah.
And I like a challenge, so that was really good. And that kind of pushed me over the edge. And then I said to myself, "You know what? Why don't I go work there part-time and check it out?"
Okay, that's a good way to sort of get a test. Yep.
So I talked to the owners who I ended up buying the funeral home from. Yeah. And I said, "Hey, can I come work part-time? Just check it out. No one will know why I'm there." Yeah. Right? They just think I'm a poor pastor because I need extra money and coming to do this. So great. And I did. And I went and I worked there for, it was like 4 months. Yeah. And my heart just kind of broke because I realized that these are hurting people. I know.
We need to stop for a second for our listeners to think about that, right? So you, as a pastor, you're experiencing every aspect of people's lives, right? Yeah. And yet you take 4 months and you work at a funeral home and your heart breaks. That is beautiful, right? Yeah. And when we think about what people think about funeral directors and what they're like, that's not probably it's certainly not how the media portrays it, right? I just think that is probably one of the most beautiful things I've heard. So I just wanted to talk about that a little bit and reflect on that because it's beautiful.
Yeah, and it was one of those things where I looked at it and went, I see hurting people and I think I can help them. Yeah. I can help them walk through their journey.
Amazing.
And I was terrified at the same time. Yeah. Like it was like, okay, I'm uprooting everything I'm got going on here is good, but let's go over here and help people. And actually, for anyone that reads the Bible, there's a scripture that says where Jesus said, I leave the 99 and go after the one that's hurting.
Yeah.
And that's what went to my head was, how can I leave the church here? Because they're good.
Yeah.
They're okay. There's people to help them. And go after the ones that are hurting. Well, who's hurting the most? When you lose someone, you're hurting the most, and nothing else matters. So that's kind of, there's the preamble to why I'm here.
Why you're, and it's so interesting because no matter the religious affiliation of the funeral director, a universal way that we describe the work that we do is as a ministry, which I think is fascinating, right? Because you even have very secular people who come into the sector who refer to it as like a ministry. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
I feel like we could talk about that for a while.
Oh yeah.
But I do want to talk about traditions in Alberta. And we talked before we started about how when you are working in the capacity as a minister and within a faith community, that's fairly prescriptive, right? In terms of services and what you do. So you must have found that transition to, or at least certainly a healthy amount of learning, when you transition to having to help people who don't have that faith community to navigate the increasingly complex world of what do I do next, right? And we know through our data and our surveys that there's 35% of Canadians who really have no idea what to do, right? They are just, they don't know if they want to do something or not do something. So how did you find that experience in that transition? And talk to our listeners about what makes Alberta unique in terms, what are some things that are particularly unique to this province?
Well, I don't know what's actually unique because I don't know what they do in other places, but
well, that's all right.
I mean, I think as I came in, I actually got to spend, there's about 3.5, 4 years with the owner. He stayed on and kind of mentored me and walked me through, like he'd been in funeral service for 35 years, right? 40 years, I think it was. But I'd known him previously. He was friends with my parents. So, I mean.
Well, and the pastor and the funeral director always know each other anyway,
that's right.
Yeah.
So it was helpful to learn from him what were the customs, traditions, and all these things that happened. And now to see the change where people don't know what they want. And actually, I'll see some faith groups and you'll walk in and I'll say, okay, so what do you guys want to do? What's your tradition? And they're like, well, we're actually not sure what our tradition is.
More and more that's the case.
And we get to help them. And to say, oh, well, typically here's what you guys believe. Right. And you get to walk them through. And I think it's beautiful because so many of the different traditions are really, really good. Yeah. And we got to be careful that we don't lose some of those.
And you know what's interesting? So my formative career was in Toronto. And one of the things that really struck me as a young funeral director starting out was the similarities between the rituals across all of the different faith-based, even very diverse faith-based, right? That the culture and the rituals and the traditions of people who are at opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of faith, how similar the traditions were. Yeah. Which I just think I think it speaks to the fact that the rituals that we find comfort in when someone dies are human in terms of how they've evolved and they really touch on some of those basic needs that we have. But I digress. So talk to me about Alberta.
So Alberta, where we are, because we're in the north, right? So we're in the upper northeast corner or northwest corner of Alberta. Yeah. And so we serve a lot of Indigenous peoples. Yes. And I think they are the best at walking through the grief journey. I love what they do. So, when
Tell our listeners what they do.
So
some people might not have exposure to that.
Yeah, a big part of what they do is they make everyone view the body. Amazing. Right? So at the end of the service, in the typical traditional service, everyone has to do a walk-by of the casket. Okay. And I remember being out at one of the services and watching all these teenagers at the start of the service. They're acting like teenagers. They're insecure. They're, kind of goofing off or whatever. But then the elders made all the teenagers walk by this casket in view, and watching them just get humbled and it was powerful to see how that community then came together. And that for me is like things we don't want to lose. Right. But things are changing so much. But those are some special things that I see in our environment that we serve, is just how they do things a little bit. I don't know if it's differently, but some cultures are changing. I know that, the whole direct cremation push, I don't think is a healthy change for people as they grieve, right? Because when you view, it's good for your mental health. It's hard, but it's good, right? When you do a burial or going to a cemetery, you get some closure, and we're seeing less and less of that now, right? So I think there's an education point that everyone in this profession needs to push.
And I think that those conversations require a lot of courage, and that's something that we don't talk about enough. We talk a lot about that on our podcast, about the importance of having the courage to have those kinds of difficult conversations, because I think a lot of what we see happening and we talked about this in the last podcast that we just shot, which was about how because it's almost like an avoidance of painful things.
Yes,
right?
You're right.
And yet I think what all of us know intrinsically, and certainly when we think about folks who are older or the elders in our community, what they know through their life experience is that it's through those painful moments that we have transformation growth.
Yeah.
And so having the courage to talk to families about those difficult, painful, be exposing yourself and your children to those painful experiences. Not everyone wants to hear that message. So how do you do that in your funeral homes, and how do you help your staff have those conversations?
That's a good question. As we work as a staff together, we all try to be on the same page of what we're doing. Now, everyone's going to do things differently,
sure,
but we want to kind of share the same sort of message. So we want to give every family the opportunity to view. That's important for us. Now, you're not going to force people if they don't want to.
Of course.
They won't.
Yeah.
But we know that it's good for their mental health.
And
right?
you know what's really important about that? So I think I mentioned I've been around a long time, right? I'm getting a little bit long in the tooth in this sector. But when I started in this business, there was definitely a sense of the funeral director knows what's best, right? And so there was even times where the funeral director would say, no, you can't view, right? And I always, a big part of this was my dad and his influence on me, but I always looked at it that it's not for me to say that
That's
to
right.
someone, because it's not my body, right?
Yeah.
My job is to make sure that you understand what you're going to see and that you have the information you need to make that decision.
Yeah.
And the fact that that is where the place that you start, I think is a really wonderful development in our sector. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, because when you touch on that, there's times where we've done viewings and we said, all you're going to see is the hand.
Yeah, but how important is that?
But
right?
they knew it was their loved one.
Yeah.
And so they get closure. Yeah. And that's key. So as a staff, we try to make sure that what can we do to the families and help them first through their journey.
The thing that was transformative for me on that was a conversation that I had with a mom who had lost her son. Her son had drowned. And I remember it was so important to her that she see her son, and really the only thing she could see was, his hand. And she said, he was alone when he died, and how can I not have the courage to be with him at this time, right?
Wow.
And to me it was so powerful. And it just really made me realize that that our job, and if we do our job really well, is about helping families through those moments. So, yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about that. I think that when there might be some folks listening today who, have that sense of, the funeral director is, however the media portrays us as funeral directors, but we know that through our research that most Canadians trust us, which is, I think, a testament to the really amazing work we do. So how do you, talk to me about how you guys do that in your everyday work? Like, how do you, because those are hard discussions to have, how do you support your team through that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's through just the meetings that we have. So we start our day with a morning check-in as a staff. We check in, we walk through who's doing what do we have on the go, what things are upcoming. And then we'll have a once a week staff meeting with the staff and just trying to talk through where you're at. What do we need to talk about? What's going on? And I think as a staff, we do a good job of supporting one another. Now we're a smaller crew, right? But it's helpful when people can come and support each other. How you doing? What's going on?
Yeah.
What do you need help with? And I mean, you could always do more, I think. But when you have that in mind, that we're here to serve first, right? And it's not about me, it's about these families. And we got to keep that in check. I try to, without the staff kind of intentionally knowing what I'm doing, I'm always trying to sell the vision of what we do.
Yeah.
Whether it's like, I'll start the day off as a prayer for our staff. We have staff that aren't believers, and that's fine. I mean, freedom of religion is an awesome thing, so believe what you want.
Yeah.
But
I don't think prayer ever hurt
no,
anyone. It's
doesn't hurt.
wonderful.
So we start, but a lot of times that prayer is focused to help the staff realize what is the vision for what we're doing, right? We're here to serve a community. And you know what? There's times where when I'm down, my community comes around me and supports me. But we're meeting people who are down and they're in our community. So we have to come around them and support them. So I think as we sell the vision to people and remind them, this is what we're doing. It's you know, we can't ever take it lightly.
Yeah.
Because I learned years ago from one of my staff, she had said, you only get one shot.
So true, right?
Right?
You only get one shot
at doing it perfect.
Yeah.
That's it. Like there's no second try. So I think if we can kind of keep that mindset.
That explains a lot as to why we are the way we are,
Yeah,
for sure, right?
I think so.
Yeah. So this has been a remarkable discussion. We are out of time. I feel like
Awesome.
we could be talking for a
could.
really long time. Your experience and just that transition from one aspect of care to another aspect of care, I think gives you a really unique perspective on our sector that I'm really glad we had a chance to share with our listeners. So thank you so much for being here.
Well, thanks for having me.
I hope that today's conversation with Chris gave all of our listeners a deeper appreciation for the rich traditions and also the change and evolving customs that are happening not just in Alberta but across Canada. And we're going to be talking a lot more about that on our podcast and how we can help support the sector and also families to navigate that change. So if you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to follow, leave us a comment, and feel free to share this episode with a fellow professional or someone in your life that you think it may have meaning for. Your support helps us to continue to bring these important conversations to our community. Until next time, I'm Heather Kiteley, and keep on digging deep.